Well, here we are with Hugh Kruzel and Franz Jelena. My name is John Lindsay, and we're here on behalf of CARP and the Friendly Seniors Sudbury. And Franz, glad to have you here with us to discuss so many issues and especially alternate level of care. And I know that you and I have worked on this going back to 2010, 12, 13 with the facility that was set up at the Memorial Hospital, which seemed to
Mhm.
be, and I just want to ask you this question as we get underway here. It seemed to be that that level of care that was provided there at that site, the memorial site, really was quite satisfactory. And I'm wondering if, regardless of we know nursing homes, there are all different types. There's public, there's private, there's not for profit. But regardless of the accommodation, it seems to be it's the level of care that that really is the issue. Is that correct?
I would say the definition of level of care is quite broad. So if you focus care on are you fed, clothed, and safe,
Hmm.
and the Memorial Hospital did that very well. They had staff from the hospital that are very knowledgeable, and they got everybody fed, clothed, and they were safe. But life is more than just being fed and being clothed. Life is all of the social interaction. It is really hard in an old hospital that is basically one big hallways with rooms on either side,
That's right.
for people to have meaningful social action. Most of those rooms, I mean, you all remember,
Yeah, yeah.
all remember the old Memorial Hospitals,
Well, I
was
was I was in there several times for different conditions, of course, and I know. And if people are interested, they can go. As a matter of fact, those videos and our pictures are still on our Friendly to Seniors website. That's www.friendlytoseniors.ca. People to go on, and we actually went in the hospital and we looked at it. We thought it was operating pretty well. But you're right, the actual physical conditions with respect to what really should be provided in nursing homes, that was not ideal, but it was a good solution for the time.
it was what we call a interim placement.
Mhm.
So to be in a hospital with all of the buzzers and the lights and the running around of a hospital is not very conducive to somebody who's not sick. They just need help. They need a level of care for activities of daily living, for to be able to enjoy life. They need a little bit of help. So we call them long-term care. So being in the hospital is not a good setting for them. The memorial was a step up from being, like in the hustle and bustle of a hospital.
Yeah.
The memorial was a step up, but there's more to life than being stuck in a hospital room with most of those rooms were 4-bed rooms. I mean, we're living through COVID. Anybody who's interested in infections control does not want to have 4 frail elderly people, often with their immune system suppressed because of the different medications they're on, and you have 4 of them in a room. And this is what the memorial looked like, because there was an old hospital who was built at the time. We put 4 people per room.
That's right.
And 1 bathroom. Some of the rooms did not have their individual bathroom. You had to be brought down to, so the physical setting of it was not perfect. The,
Yeah, that's true.
the
Even though the
people
level
who,
of the level of care was really well, but a lot of us are going to end up, if we're unlucky enough, in a nursing home, or if there are as what we would hope they would be, then we might not be as adverse of ending up in a nursing home. And Hugh, uh, your mother now is reaching an advanced age that could be a resident of a nursing home. I know that my
Not
mother-in-law
yet.
was in extended care. She was in Finlandia, so I have intimate knowledge of the nursing homes. Of course, we've been into most of them, and indeed a lot of the retirement homes around town. As Hugh, we've all visited these. So,
Every single one.
is there anything that we should be looking at that really, you know, we could solve some of these
Well,
problems
more
without
importantly,
waiting years? Yeah.
John, if the military went in and they wrote a report, what would they say about Sudbury long-term care facilities?
I don't know, Franz, what do you think?
uh, I would say that we fare pretty good.
Mm.
I mean, the old extended care York have been identified as a home that needs to be rebuilt. We still have the 3 and 4 bed per room. We still have 1 bathroom for a number of rooms. Extended care is committed to build a new facilities in behind of the Walmart at the Four Corners.
Yeah.
And so that would help a great deal. But when you look to the future, look to the futures where other models of cares exist.
Yes.
So if you look at Western Europe, some of those countries have not built 1 new long-term care bed in the last 30 years. What they do instead is what they build villages. So they will have a house. I went and visited the one of them and basically they build a house that can, sometimes there's 4, sometimes there's 6 people who qualify for long-term care. So those are people with cognitive impairment. Those are people who need help with dressing, with bathing, with eating, with grooming, with activities of daily living. And they live in a house that more or less looked like my house, except that it was all wheelchair accessible.
Mm-hmm.
And they're in the neighborhood. When I was there, the kids happened to be coming out of school when I was visiting. And some of it was a nice day. Some of them were on a swing
Outside.
in the house. And some of the kids came and sat with the residents and swung for a little while and talked to them and laughed and then went on their ways. So they are part of the
community.
But they receive the care they need in a setting that looks, feels, smell a whole lot more like a home. They do not have to, right now in the long-term care home, chances are you deal with about 30 different staff because of the change of shift and all of this. In that house, they have maybe 6 staff per house. The staff is the same person who cooks, who helps you get dressed, who helps you go to the bathroom, who helps you transfer to the swing if you want to go swing outside for a while. And they become part of your family, and it works. Some of the people that were there were cognitively really impaired. I don't have access to their chart or anything, but I'm sure they had diagnosis of dementia or maybe Alzheimer or whatever, but yet they were part of the community. By being there in the community, they were still teaching a lot. They teach about
Life stages.
Yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Well, actually, I want to back up just a minute, France, because I know John introduced you, and I believe you mentioned she's the member of Provincial Parliament MPP for Nickel Belt, but you also are the health critic and have been the health critic for how long, France?
I've been the health critic for the last 13 years.
Yeah.
You know your onion.
And I come from 25 years in healthcare. I used to work at what was then Laurentian
So
Hospital.
you speak with authority, and you well, not just with authority, with compassion, but you know what it means to deliver healthcare in the best possible way. And as you mentioned, you've been on trips to understand how other regions do it, and perhaps we don't have to reinvent the wheel, but we do need to take best practices from other places. And then you've been at this game for a long time.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
well, I mentioned it because we are broadcasting this eventually to the larger CARP community. People can watch YouTube as well. So, France Gelina, thank you very much for being our guest today.
You know, France, looking at you and I have been involved with personal support worker concerns for I don't know how many years, maybe 13 years, going back in numerous meetings, and we've all heard the stories. We've all been impressed by the number of personal support workers who are very committed, yet they do face many challenges. How can we address this?
To me, make PSW jobs good jobs. It's as simple as that. Give them a caseload that they can handle. Nobody can look after 100 residents. Nobody can look after 28 residents. It doesn't matter how good you are It is physically impossible. So first, a caseload that makes sense. Second, pay them a living wage. Right now, most of them don't have full-time jobs. Why? Because if you give them full-time job, you have to pay them 2 weeks of holidays. You have to give them a few paid sick leaves. You may have to pay for a little bit of benefits or pension plan. Give them good jobs. There are thousands of very good PSWs who wants to work as a PSW, but they can't because they can't make ends meet. If they work as a PSW, they will have to work 2 and 3 different jobs to try to patch together an income. And after a few years, they give up and say, go work at Walmart. I'm being paid minimum wage. I work my 40 hours. I have benefits and I have to look after my family. And this is the reality of working as a PSW right now. Make PSW job good job. A caseload that a human being can handle, a living wage, a little bit of benefit, few paid sick days, maybe even a pension plan, and we don't have a problem recruiting and retaining PSWs anymore. In our city here, we are in Sudbury, when Health Sciences North recruits for a PSW, they have hundreds of people who apply. Why? Because they will have full-time job with benefits, with a pension plan, and a living wage, because the hospital pays more than the long-term care home. Yet our long-term care, all of them have staffing issues. They cannot recruit and retain a stable workforce. Good quality care comes from continuity of care, who comes from continuity of caregiver. All of this is related. We can fix it all.
Is the response to all of this to take the for-profit out of the picture? And I know today there's been discussion on national radio about, making long-term care just like a hospital. It's a dedicated team where the bottom line is care, not how much are we going to pay dividends to our shareholders.
This is a big issue in Ontario. We are the only province that have privatized our home care system to the point we've had. We are the only province that has privatized our long-term care system to the point we have. In some other provinces, it is all government run, like our hospital, or through not-for-profit and charitable organization, and life is very different. So you have to look at who owns those big chains. They are real estate corporations. They are investment company. They are people who know nothing about healthcare, but they know a whole lot about making money. So
our former premier Harris, I believe, is the chair of a for-profit organization, and he and his wife, I may be wrong about this, but I think I read in the Globe and Mail, they are shareholders in serious shareholders in one of the arms of a holding group which controls many retirement homes.
You're absolutely right. Former
Shame.
is the president of Chartwell, who owns
Yes.
long-term care home, many retirement home, and as I said, so the people who own them are not people who know about healthcare. They are people who know about how to make money. You have to realize that, as opposed to in a hospital, when we go in a hospital, everything is free. When you go into a long-term care home, the care is free, but you pay for your rent. So the average rent in a long-term care home, so let's say you have a private room, which will be maybe 140 square feet with a bathroom. That's it, that's all, a little square with a bathroom,
Right.
will be $2,700 a month. This is what you pay in rent. All of your room, if you own a long-term care home, are always filled. There is wait lists for rooms in long-term care nonstop. Think of any other landlord who can guarantee that their rooms will always be full.
Generate income, yes.
And there is no place in Sudbury where you pay $2,700 a month for an apartment that is 160 square feet. It pays that kind of money in Sudbury, but in our long-term care home, that's what we pay. So there is a lot of money to be made on the the rent side of things, and it attracts a lot of investors who makes a ton of money. So the argument is the hundreds of millions of dollars that have gone to shareholders would have paid a lot of $16 an hour PSW to
W's.
work that needed to be done.
I've also
John, were
heard
you
that,
gonna-
I was just going to say, I also heard that in many cases, some of the areas where they cut corners is with respect to meals and with respect to cleaning, which are two real essential items, especially when you have a pandemic.
Yes. And John, I was going to piggyback to that. France, were you shocked by the military report that came out of the 5 care homes that they've been posted to? Were you shocked by the results?
Not at all. I have read reports outlining the exact same complaints for the last 13 years. We knew about all of this. Anybody who follows long-term care, anybody who knows anything about long-term care knows about all of those issues. They have all been from Casa Verde to the Wetlaufer to the Auditor General, who's done report after report. From we all know. I could have named you the top or the bottom 30 homes, what they call the red homes. We all know who they are. But
inspectors weren't even going in to visit. I mean, they themselves felt, I mean, that is damning.
This is partly a spin, I would say. So we used to have quality inspection in all of our homes every year. In the last 12 years or so, they have started to be less and less. In the last year, we've had only 6 of our 226 long-term care home had a quality inspections done. Right now, the Minister of Health, Minister of Long-Term Care will tell you, oh, we did 3,000 inspection. That's not right. They received 3,000 complaints and they followed up on 3,000 complaints. This is very different from an actual inspection where you have a team of people who moved in, they talk to the residents, they talk to the family council, they talk to the staff, they look at the medication to see if the medication is still up to date or past their due date, they look at the food that is being served, they look at the supply chain, they look at everything.
Cleanliness.
At those 5 homes where the Army has made their report, and you look at the number of complaints, you look at the number of fault that has been found in those homes over the years, it's all there already. We all knew.
So what can, we have hundreds of members, CARP members throughout Northern Ontario, and of course thousands across the country. What should we be doing? Now the national organization, of course, is very active, but how about individuals? Is there anything that we can be doing?
Oh, absolutely. For once, the heart, mind, and eyes of the community are on long-term care. Long-term care is not sexy. Long-term care doesn't attract headlines. Long-term care is really easy to dismiss. You're talking about 78,000 people who are frail, elderly, who don't have a voice. It's for years we have dismissed their needs for years, but now we have this opportunity where because of the pandemic, everybody knows what's going on. Everybody is shocked, dismayed, disappointed, and wants change. Make the voice of every single one of your members matter. Make sure that they go to their MPP, that they hold Mr. Ford to account. We need a legal inquiry into what goes on. We need to take step right now. There are steps that have been identified. I was elected in 2007 on a promise of 3.5 hours of hands-on care. 13 years later, it's now 4 hours of hands-on care, but nothing has been done. Minister Fullerton could today write a policy that says we need to legislate. You don't even need legislation. She can do this by herself. Put a regulation in place for 4 hours of hands-on care, and it's done. She can again, asked to make PSW job good job. Most of them are working part-time. Make it like in the hospital that at least 70% of your staff has to be full-time, and full-time, hopefully with a little bit of benefit and a sick day here and there, and maybe a pension plan even, but just making them full-time, you will attract a lot of PSW back to the job that they love. I have spent a lot of time in long-term care, and most of the staff are there. None of them go there to be rich. None of them go there to be famous. None of them, they go there because they want to care for us, because they want to make a difference in people's lives. And you can see this. This is the people that are attracted to those kind of jobs. They should be paid for the important work that they do. We now call them heroes. How could we pay our heroes minimum wage with no benefits? How can you say hero and pay them minimum wage? How could that be?
If we only had more politicians who were passionate and do the investigative work you do, we wouldn't have this, would we? I mean, you can't stand back and let it go. You have to act, and you have to be, yes, John, you asked the right question. What can we do with our 300,000 plus voices? All for change here in Northern Ontario, across this province and across this country.
Well, we're running out of time. I just want to say, Francis, it's really wonderful that you could join us here. But as you said, you've been involved with this for over a decade. I know that it can be disappointing and frustrating at times, but looking forward now, what do you see happening within the next little while with respect to this investigation that's going to take place? And we hope it's not pushed under the rug. Is there any direction that you can see yourself and your party and indeed the whole provincial legislature looking at moving forward that's going to satisfy the most of us?
Well, I would say there are a few steps that have been taken. They have offered $4 an hour increases to the PSWs who work in long-term care. Why don't we keep that? They have said that they want to do a commission. I would demand that it be an independent and legislative process. There is big money involved. There is some big real estate and investment company who stand to lose hundreds of millions of dollars. They're not going to sit back and say, oh, for the good of my grandmother, I will give up on $600 million. This is not going to happen. It will only happen if there is a process in place that give a voice to people like you, to the 360,000 members that you represent, to people who have loved one in long-term care or have had loved one, people who care. We need to have a voice. We need to be heard. The Ontarians are good people. They now realize that we have a broken system. Let's fix it. But let's fix it with the view of there is other ways to provide long-term care. Maybe it's time to have a few pilot projects to look at those so that, you know, the empathy that I was talking about that you get because you get to be with people in need and be with frail people. This is something that changes a community for the better. We have a lot to learn. Let's not put them away in a building that is not accessible. Let them live among us so we can get to see them, speak to them, and learn from them. And as I said, learning empathy is something that serves every community.
Hugh, any final comments? I know that the last issue of Zoomer magazine deals specifically with the crisis, and it's worth those people who want to pick up the Zoomer magazine or go on the website and to see just what action is being taken on behalf of the organization with this issue. Any final comments, Hugh?
I'm just delighted that we're doing this, and truly thank you, France, for all the work you do. And, you know, I mean, you've been doggedly doing this for years. I hope that you continue onwards now, this 2020, but for maybe decades doing the same thing. And that there are results, that things do work out, that we do make change, France. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, John.
My pleasure.